So welcome to the Node.js Community and API team meeting for April 15th, 2019. We're going to follow our standard sort of agenda, which is to ask for any announcements and then look at what we've got tagged for milestone 11. So to kick off, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share?
Nope, not I.
No? Okay, so let's take a look at what we've got tagged for milestone 11. I'm just going to go there. Okay, so the first one is Node.js blog post. I think that might actually be complete, right?
Yep, it's live.
So that was a good blog post that went out. And one thought I had is, the people were talking about what we should highlight for 12. Did a number of the changes related to that? Is 12 the first thing they're shipping in?
Yeah, actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
so is there any chance you could send me if there's a couple PRs that went into what 12? Because then I'll say, hey, here's a few things that went in, and really it's all in support of this effort, which is one of the things we should sort of highlight that progress was made on 12.
Sure, I can look at 12.x staging and see what's in there.
Okay. Yeah, if you just call, that'll let me easily say, hey, this is the case for why this should be one of the highlights. I think, it's a good way to highlight NAPI as well, again, to say, look, we've been working on making progress across releases to make it easier for Node add-ons. We've been working on API. Of course, there's improvements in API. It's version 1.4 is part of that. And there's these other things which have also gone in, which you'll send me links for. And hey, here's a great blog. You can go read more about it. Sound good?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so otherwise, though, we'll close this issue, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry, Michael, could you share the screen?
Yes, thanks. Sorry, forgot about doing that. There we go. That way you don't have to just look at my face. Okay, so I closed the blog post. Submissions to NodeConf.eu.
Yeah, what's going on there?
I think we talked a little bit about that. I did talk to Matteo a little bit. It sounds like, yeah, there might be a little reluctance to do a similar workshop. So the discussion we did have about, framing it a little bit differently, I think is important here. I'll flip over to that one too. Actually, sorry, let's close off with the first one. But anything else you think we should talk about in terms of the submissions to NodeConf.eu itself? I think we've got a couple there, right? So Gabriel, you've got one, which is lifetime to native add-on. That'll give us some coverage.
Yeah.
And then Nick was going to talk about one, using NAPI with different programming languages, I think would be quite interesting too. And I guess I think we'd leave it at that. I can't remember last year. I think there was still Arunish had done a talk on NAPI. I don't know, Hitesh, if there's still an interest to do that or.
I don't think Arunish is planning a talk this time around, okay. But I can check with him.
I guess it's really do we all feel comfortable? Not like this would there'd be a couple talks which would mention NAPI potentially, but wouldn't be the focus of, hey, what's going on with the NAPI effort.
I think that's fine. I think the project is at a different stage now. I think last year it was to bring awareness to the effort. And I feel like there's awareness now, and now it's just here are different ways you can use it and engage.
Right. I think we still need to get it, but yeah, try and get that in directly is our best bet. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay, so I think in that case, those two look like very good candidates on my mind for that, and I'll take that one. We'll leave it in milestone 11, but anyway. Okay, so the next one was the workshop. Right, so Jim put together, and he did say he wasn't going to be here this week, but he put together this abstract. I think there was a few updates. I think it looked very good to me. I just had one small suggestion about like trying to make it so that people, even if they don't know anything, are happy to come. I've also heard that the JS Interactive is going to open the call for submission soon as well.
Did we ever establish the venue? I kind of
Montreal.
For JS Interactive.
Yep.
Where is it?
Montreal. It's in Canada.
Oh, it's in Montreal. Okay.
Yeah, Montreal. Right. I was going to say, wait a sec. You came from Toronto. You must know where Montreal is.
No, I know where Montreal is, but I didn't know JS was moving there.
No. I guess I think you just didn't hear me when I said it's in Montreal. And you said, well, where's that? It's like, what?
Okay, no, yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah,
okay, I got it. Okay, so JS Interactive is in Montreal. That's cool.
Yeah, centralish Canada. It's about, well, actually, there should be direct flights from Europe, which is good. Like for me, I have to go indirect, but indirect means through Toronto or Montreal. So I'm pretty sure there'll be direct flights to a lot of the major European hubs anyway.
Yeah.
And probably about 6 to 7 hours. So it's not too bad.
Yeah, it's a little further east too. So that's good for Europe.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like it's definitely 4 hours closer than Vancouver, 3 to 4 hours. So I think we should submit this one as well. I guess we should just wait for Jim to come back, and then, you know, unless anybody else has other suggestions, we should just actually submit this one.
Sounds good.
Along with the comments of, hey, you know, this was really helped us last year, so we're really hoping to get it in again this year. And I guess we should also, I wonder if there's like anywhere else we should be proposing this as a workshop. Because I think that would be our biggest bang for the buck, is if we could get this workshop into, say, other conferences. So are there any others that come to mind?
What about, is there going to be a Node Summit? Because that's another good place for it.
Definitely we would do that. We're still waiting to hear. I haven't heard if that's happening or not. I'm starting to wonder.
Yeah. It's a little late in the year.
Yeah.
I don't know. Node.js Atlanta. I saw this conference advertising on Twitter. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's in February next year. So that's, I think, a possibility. I guess some of the JS confs are probably a bit more front-end oriented, and this is pretty C back-end-ish.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it would probably be out of place. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know, for things like SSR might sort of dovetail into this. I don't know. I mean, it certainly can't hurt to try, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I think if everybody can kind of think of conferences that might make sense and propose, because I think getting into one or two more, like in a workshop type environment, would definitely be good for us and for the effort.
Yeah.
Because we got a pretty good bump from the NodeConf EU, and I think something similar, a few more times somewhere else, I think would be good. I wonder, like, because, I'll reach out to Joe, because I know in New York there was something in like the September timeframe last year. Okay. But yeah, we'll keep this one open until we get it submitted, and also if people can, think between now and next week to see if there's any other options. Separate additional package on top of Node add-on API. Hitesh, you put together a draft of what that would look like. Do you want to take us through that, or what useful discussion should we have this week?
Yeah, I think the last time we talked about this, the plan was that you all were going to review it. So I guess I don't know if people have had a chance to review it and looked at or have specific questions.
I've read through it. Don't have any specific questions. It's kind of like, how do we make the decision, right?
So the suggestion I had was to engage with Node add-on API users, maybe open an issue there and ask for feedback around which options people preferred.
Right.
But I don't know if somebody else has a better idea than that.
I think before I did that, I'd want us to convince ourselves we're happy with either option. Right, like the real, I could see as a consumer, if it's all in one, there's not really much of a downside other than space. I guess that space downside. The biggest concern in my mind is the sort of the expectation that this group would maintain whatever goes into the core one, right?
Yep.
And so I think we need to say, yeah, if we're comfortable with doing that. And that's really where I think it, because otherwise you don't want to go and ask a question, you get the answer, and then say, well, we just can't do the.
Is this something that's worth getting TSC input on?
Thing is, I'm not sure we're going to get a lot of feedback because the module itself, if it was in the core APIs itself, I think we'd get feedback. It doesn't hurt to ask. I'm just not sure we're going to get an answer that clarifies it for us. Like the TSC model is really the people doing the work will figure out the answers, right? And if there's conflict or whatever, they'll help resolve it. But like in this case, I think it would be like, hey, if we said we're perfectly comfortable that we can handle all the work and like just bring stuff in, then there'd probably be support for that. If we were saying, well, no, we don't think we can, there'd also be support for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think de facto things are heading towards like the ecosystem solution because there are like there's an issue where people are mentioning like an API thread safe function implementation and stuff like that, like a C++ wrapper that is out there somewhere. So people are writing these things and they're not waiting for us, sort of, So
and that's good, right? Like.
Yeah, no, it is good. It is good. It just sounds like the people vote with their feet kind of thing, and they voted for the ecosystem solution. They just write these things and they throw them on npm because it's so simple.
Right.
So I'm not sure. I mean, we could start to like curate maybe, but aside from that, I don't know if I mean. I don't know if we should, make an explicit effort because we might end up duplicating some stuff that's out there, even potentially.
I like the curating side of things, like providing a place where people can say, "Hey, here are these things that we put together," right?
Yeah, that's that. Yeah. So basically, just sort of, keep a list and try to keep it up to date of things that are out there that right. Also wrap an API or also add C++ based functionality on top of an API. That's
like here PR yourself in.
Yeah, basically, that's.
And then we'd be aware of it, which is good, and we can point people. It's not that we endorse them, but like here's the list.
Yeah.
And if we see that there's one that's like, oh, that just has to be part of core, then we can pull it in. Look at pulling it in.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if we mention stuff like on the README page for Node add-on API, like additional packages or something, that's potentially a way to go.
And then so if it's something which is, so then in general, if somebody comes with something which is beyond a wrapper of core, the first suggestion will be, create a module and add your references here. We'll help publicize it, but create a separate module. And then on things like the where that's not possible, or we really think it needs to be in core, or more the special case like TFSN, where it's like, well, okay, that's not necessarily, well, that's still a fairly, yeah, that is in core. Okay, so forget that. And then things that we really think at some point we could revisit, but to start with, it's like, yeah, start separate modules.
That sounds like a fine approach to me. I think one thing we should be precise about is then our plan for API support and like deprecation and so on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess we do, yeah, we haven't said we won't change the APIs. We haven't actually made a breaking change yet. But yes, okay, so you'd say basically we'll give this amount of warning or whatever, right?
Right, exactly. I think that should be good enough in terms of an ecosystem.
Okay.
And if the ecosystem pushes back, we can review.
Yeah, and we really try not to in the first place, right? Like we've gone out of our way not to actually change anything when we didn't have to.
Yep.
Okay. Does that sound reasonable, like a reasonable approach to everybody?
Yeah, I think that ecosystem approach is more flexible than others. So, yeah, I agree.
Okay, and then if we come up with like some in practice problems, or it's like some real frictions being introduced, because that's the way we're going, then we can think about other alternatives. Now the two PRs above, I guess the thing we said, we got the first cut taking the two approaches. The next one's to get input from the two who have submitted those two PRs. So maybe we should reach out to those two and just say, this is what we've decided, right? So maybe I'm going to say document. So document our preferred approach. So basically, I think the next step is for us to write down either in this issue, or I think a PR to Node.js on API would probably make sense. Anybody want to volunteer to do that?
Do you want me to just update the doc I have and link to it in both those PRs?
Yeah, although I think like, as opposed to having it in a Google Doc, we probably want the text in the repo itself linked off the README that says, we considered these two approaches. This is, or maybe it starts out with like, here's the approach. If it's something that wraps it, we'll take that into core itself. If it's not wrapping stuff, our general approach is to ask that you do it in an ecosystem module. Here are the two options that we considered, which would be pretty much the text that you have, and then probably up front as well. Here's a link where you can PR in your module so that it's visible and other people can find it easily off the read.
Yeah, I can take a stab at that.
Okay, that sounds good. Because then then we'll end up with like actual documentation in the repo that we can point people to say here's what it was and here's our rationale, right?
Yep. You
can probably also have I don't know, is there any more there's not a lot more discussion in the issue itself that we could link to, so I don't think that's necessarily worth it. But yeah, if you can take a cut at that, that'd be good. SPR to Node on API. Okay, and then I think we should send it to the people who sent a couple PRs, just saying, as on the PR, we should mention them saying, hey, this is what our preferred approach, and give them a chance to comment on that, and then go from there.
Sounds good.
Okay, good. So async worker. So yeah, I think we can spend whatever time we have left looking at the next part of async worker. Are there any, I'm looking at the like issues, burn down the list of issues in the repo. The one I might call out is Node add-on API issues. No, that's not it. Sorry, I'm trying to find the one that. No, I don't think that was it. Oh, a second. I'm just gonna have to pull up my email because I just want to highlight it because I did. Somebody, the originator did basically reach out to me saying, "Hey, still haven't been able to make any progress on this one." Okay, it's 425.
Yeah, the no return value.
Right. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, they reached out to me and said, "Hey, you know, I can't make any progress, and actually, we're even willing to pay somebody if you know somebody who would help out." So I thought I'd at least bring it up to so that everybody knows that they're definitely eager to get some help. But at that, I think that's about all I can say at this point because I really haven't had a chance to dig into it. I don't know, Nick, if you have any more insight to what's going on there, or.
No, I tried to add, but I don't know what happened when in his code.
Right.
I am because he cannot expose all the code he has.
Yeah.
But in the code that he reported seems good, but I don't know what happened in his library because what I understood is that he is on Windows and load a DLL, and I don't know what happened when he called some function.
Okay, so the code he has there doesn't recreate the problem itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does make it a problem.
The call happened when he called a method get to list, a function get to list. But if you write a wrap a stub that returns an array, all works good. So my thinking is that maybe some problem happened and he doesn't have the array when getList return, or maybe getList is an asynchronous function. I don't know what happened there.
Okay, but what we really need is a recreate. The code that recreates it, and then we could look at it. If it's a Windows thing, Hitesh might be able to help out, but
maybe, yeah. But I think that it's not maybe Windows problem. It's called generic.
Right. Okay. But really, I guess it's. You know, it's basically we need to get either, I guess it's somebody like, I guess I'll respond to him saying like either we basically need some code that can be shared publicly that recreates the problem, or I might be able to suggest, like, you know, one of the consulting companies, like, I don't know if Nearform would do something like that, where they would work with them and they could sign an NDA.
Yeah, because this is the problem, the NDA.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
We should also be careful not to recommend any one particular
Sure.
company, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of any ones that I know of.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Like, I guess it's like whoever we could open an issue. Yeah, it's basically saying somebody who's got some expertise in this area or node that would be able to help out.
Well, we could surreptitiously mention Matteo or something.
Right.
Like,
there's actually
you know.
a few people that you know, I'm thinking of like people who could be like individual contractors might be interested.
Yeah, that's another good point. Yeah.
So it's kind of like maybe we can make a post in members and basically say, here's an opportunity for some paid help.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
that's the most fair way to do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because we just can't see it otherwise. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll respond to him with that basically, like, either we need, like, you know, a recreate that we can see publicly. Otherwise, like the other approach is that, you know, if you I suppose if you had a node support contract, somebody might help you, and or you know, we'll post an issue in the members. We could post an issue in the members, basically saying, hey, you know, looking for some help on this front, willing to pay. Because I guess I should mention, like, you know, if IBM sells node support, and that I was just thinking, like, you know, to take money for a one-off, but if you actually bought a support contract from somebody, then they'd help you too. Okay. Anything else to discuss on that front? No. Okay. That's the main one I want to highlight before we switched over to async worker side of things. Anything else people want to highlight? I'll take that as a no. So let's flip back to that, because I know we had a good discussion last time. Let's see where we can continue on from. So, okay. So last time we got to the point of discussing the unsafe destructing behavior, some reference counting, and I think we came up with a good solution on that front. So let's loop back to the concerns, which were okay, and I talked cancellation. So I think we've covered that first one. So the second one is hard-coded JavaScript function callbacks. So is there any reason we can't just make that an optional thing, and if it's not there, not call it?
Yeah, that does kind of look like an eyesore a little bit, because it really should be optional. I mean, what you do, yeah, what you do in the on OK and on error should be completely up to you. I guess that's a little.
But I can see it's handy to be able to say you can have these functions be called, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, but basically we're saying that we're basically encoding in this requirement the assumption that you will call back into JavaScript, and that's not necessarily a good assumption.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we could make this optional and just go from there. Let me just see what it takes to make it.
Yeah, let's take, yeah.
So like,
you'll probably beat me to it, but I'm going to pull up the code too. Right. So it.
Yeah. All the constructors take this function.
Right. Sorry. Come on. I'm not doing a good job here. No, I'm not searching at all in the proper way. How about, like, say, async worker? Right. So this callback, right?
Yeah. There's no reason specifically for it, because async work doesn't have the concept of a callback. It's not like a thread safe function.
I mean, it's handy for the default, like, okay, when you're on OK is happened, this callback gets invoked, or it's like you don't have to write as much code because on error or on OK, it probably comes from what was in NaN as well, I would assume.
Let's see. Oh boy, where are you at? Yeah. Yeah, it also takes a callback and it's not null. Yeah, it's true.
So, I mean, I don't think we want to remove, we don't want to break the API anyway, but even if we were, we stay consistent with NaN, we wouldn't want to get rid of it. But making it optionally nullable doesn't seem to be a bad thing.
Yeah, except it's a reference, right? So the idea is that it's
right.
not null. It's not like we're not, see, in NaN, the callback is being passed as a pointer, not a reference.
Okay.
So that can be null.
Right. I see. So we've passed it differently enough that.
Yeah. That we couldn't really pass null there. I mean, we could pass like an empty function, like an empty value where the env is null and the nappy value that it's wrapping is null. So we could pass like nappy : function, but I'm not sure if you can give a default value to a reference. I don't know enough C++ to know that.
I mean, could we just make an additional set of APIs that?
Yeah, should we just create like a separate async worker class which does that?
You mean like another constructor that doesn't have that?
Yeah.
Or you could even just duplicate the class or subclass it to some degree, async worker no callback.
Right.
Although I wouldn't. Why make a separate class versus just you've got additional constructors you could use.
Yeah, I think the thing is though, if we do additional constructors, then we'd have to do the whole set again. But that's okay. Like it doesn't
okay,
really
so but the overridden one, right? Okay, because you'd have to give. Yes, we'd have to give the whole set.
Yeah, and I don't think we could. Yeah, we couldn't reuse the constructor that we have because like where would you get the reference? Well, yeah, I guess you could have like a dummy function, but no, not really.
Why not? You could have a dummy function as a static on the class itself, which is you could also make that as the option. You pass in the dummy function if you don't want to provide a callback.
Yeah, that would, yeah. So yeah, just have like a nappy function that is constructed with no parameters, and I think function has one of those, has a constructor that has no parameters, and yeah, and then just pass that one around into constructor.
We'd have to basically make sure that then was like we check against that and we wouldn't call it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where are we actually calling the, like, we're not actually using the callback anywhere.
I think on OK.
No, because like on OK we're calling a native callback, right? So yeah, oh yeah, no, okay, callback call, right?
I think that's my guess. That's
Oh,
kind of
I see. Okay. So basically by default we make like an empty function call, like, to JavaScript. It accepts no, or it passes no parameters into JavaScript. It's just basically like callback brackets is what it looks like on the JavaScript side. And if there's an error, we call that JavaScript function. Okay, so with the error.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, it's, you can provide a JavaScript function, and you'll either get you can tell based on the error or not whether it's.
Yeah. That's okay. So that's our default behavior. So if we added this dummy function, then the on OK and the on error would basically just check if the dummy function was empty, and only call into JavaScript if it's a real JavaScript function. That's all. So we just wrap these two calls in an if, and that would be it.
Exactly. And yeah, I guess we could even provide, I don't know if it's C++ ish, but we could define like a no function or no callback, like a define, which then resolved into the static from that class.
Yeah, but
maybe that's the same thing.
Well, I mean, we don't want a real function at any point, right? So this underscore callback may be empty at that point. Like we're basically null checking, except we're not null checking callback itself. We're null checking the contents of callback, because ultimately, even though callback is passed by reference into the constructor and all that, it's still nullable because at its heart it's just a pointer, right? It just wraps a nappy value, and if that nappy value is null, and it can be null because it's a pointer, then we can check to see that it's null here, and only call one of its members if it's not. So essentially, even though it's like a C++ reference, it can still be null because of the nature of the class.
So it would be like a function. So it would be so like there would be a static, which was defined as a function that's on the class itself, right? And we don't have to look at the contents. Like it just doesn't, like we could even check that address if we wanted to.
Well, it would be a static function, but it would be constructed using like a null nappy value and a null environment. Right.
Because I guess
the perfectly valid constructor and value for a function.
Because is that doing a copy? Like that @ sign isn't doing a copy, right? It's passing the.
No, that's right. Yeah. But that's okay, right? Because I mean, like a static member never goes out of scope, right? So
right. But I'm just saying we could actually just do. Did you pass us a pointer to that thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like if at callback equals this other thing, can't we do something like that?
No, it's not. You're not checking the value of underscore callback, right? Because that's a reference, right? So that's never going to be null. But you can check like underscore callback dot value, basically, which is like the nappy value inside it.
Environment might be empty.
Okay, but I was just thinking you might even do a simpler one, like it's always going to be the same address for that empty thing.
But we're not dealing with addresses though, right? Because we're not dealing with pointers. So the instance is actually, it's a reference. So
right, but is it a copy of the reference, or if we take the address of it, do we actually get the address?
Even if it were to be a copy, you would have a copy of something that has
a null pointer for the environment and the value.
Yeah,
right, which is right, but that's right. Yeah, so if you're actually making a copy,
so then in the check you would see if the environment is null or something.
Yeah,
right.
and I think like nappy value, or I mean nappy colon value has like an is empty method. So we would just say if not underscore callback is empty, callback call, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. And then could you just then have another constructor that does not have this function, but then you just use this
exactly
instead then. So then you wouldn't have to use this define thing that you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, exactly. So we do so we create like a static a static member to this class, which is of type nappy function and is initialized to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so is empty will return true for it, and then we use that. We pass that into the constructor, into the existing constructors from the new constructors, and that's it.
I think that sounds good.
And then we will have made the function optional, and it's semver minor at that point.
Right. On okay.
Are there ever any concerns about constructing these static objects now? Like, because now we're going to be providing code that does create static objects that may or may not be needed.
Oh, well, yeah, it is kind of an artifact. Yeah, that's true. But we're already past the point where we are truly purely inline, because we already have like static functions which the pointers to which we pass into like the C API. We have to, right?
Right.
So that we already have stuff that is like real rather than this was part of the reason why we had to introduce the -f visibility equals hidden for OS 10, is because we do have symbols, and including napi.h in your code will result in symbols being added to your object file and ultimately to your library. So yes, we have symbols to our name basically, and so that's why we ran into this visibility issue on OS 10, and this is going to be another symbol that we add. There's just no two ways about it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess what you've described with it being empty is the safest one anyway, because even if there was confusion because there were several, they'd both be empty and it wouldn't really matter.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just typed that as the solution for this one. Does that look good?
Yep. That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
So that one sounds good. Okay, so hard-coded JavaScript function callback done. No support for promises.
Yeah, this async promise. We have a PR for async promise, I think, and I'm about to comment to Philip. He also submitted an issue about this running node thread idea, to just have like a one-off thing where you're just happily chugging along on your own thread, and by the way, I want to run something in the node thread. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like a variation on the thread safe function, where the idea is not that you have a function object which is now thread safe, but rather you have like a one-off. You have a reference to a JavaScript function, like a persistent reference, and you cannot use the persistent reference on your own thread, and so you have this like running node thread thing where you pass the persistent reference to a callback which will run on the node thread, and therefore using the persistent reference is safe. So he had that idea, and I was about to comment to him that yes, great, run with it. We're happy to hear it, but please write a library, because we've decided not to accumulate everything in Node add-on API. So something to that effect I was about to comment. And I think this async promise is the same thing. Like it uses async, which is Node add-on API wrapper. It uses promise, which is also a Node add-on API wrapper. But putting them together is a feature above and beyond just being a wrapper, and so it is ripe for its own npm package, or for depositing in another npm package that deals with these enhancements.
So basically, I just typed this one, which has no support for promises. Based on earlier discussion, suggestion would be to create an npm module that goes beyond just wrapping an API functions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think we're out of time for this week. But we can loop back to the next ones in the list. I think it's good. We're making some suggestion. I think also there's the exploration, the resolution was suggesting something new, and it may be that the suggestion is to okay, that's good, but maybe that belongs in a separate package, just because we need something that maintains NAND compatibility in the first place, right?
Right. Yeah.
Unless for some reason you can't build that, but if you can, then okay. But we'll plan next week to work through the next couple. Any other last things people want to discuss before we close out for today?
So for those items that we discussed, those are actionable and can be put into the code.
Yes.
Who is responsible for doing that? Is it the
anybody who has time? It would be great if they opened an issue and started working on it. Otherwise, if we get to the end of the list, we'll find a volunteer to do that.
Okay.
But feel free to
basically plant your stake.
Okay. Gotcha.
Or even if even if you don't want to do the implementation, it'd be great if you have time to open issues in the Node add-on API repo saying, here's the context, this is what we think is the right answer. If you have time, please work on it. Because
yeah. That's a good approach too.
So if somebody has time to do that piece, that's great. If somebody then has time to go on and actually start working on the implementation, that's even better. But both of them have good value to sort of get things started.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay. Any other things? If not, great. And we'll talk to you all again next week and through GitHub between now and then.
All right. Talk to y'all later.
Okay.
Bye.
Yep, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.